Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the AFLW show for another dissection of the week that was. I am joined once again by my esteemed colleague, Pommy. Good evening, Pom. Welcome back.
It's my new home. It's home from home.
It is. It's a torture session. It really is, isn't it?
We just drag me out for losses. That's my job.
Oh, look, I would prefer it if I dragged you out for a win, but I don't see one of them coming anytime soon. But we'll get into that. How have you been?
I've been well, actually. Wishing everyone a belated happy Valentine's Day. But yeah, that was my weekend. It was a mix of gastro and Valentine's Day. So
oh my god,
it was a great combination.
Let's hope let's hope Valentine's Day didn't cause the gastro.
No, I was clever. I got gastro before.
Love it.
Always thinking.
And happy anniversary, I believe, as well. You and Mrs. Pom.
I mean, imagine being married to me for over a decade.
You must have done something right, Pommy. Must have done something right.
Well, it shows what, just slipping in the occasional tequila in my wife's drink does over a continuous period of time.
Love it. On that note, let's get the show started.
Vesio with all the experience in the world. She kicks.
And there it is, just on half time. Maddie Prasparkas.
Bopper. Gotta love a good bopper. Now, I watched your watch along on the weekend, and I made a few comments that I think were within reason, and I believe that you agreed with majority of them, and I think everybody at home is at that same point now where we watch the game of football and we go in with zero expectations and they deliver exactly what we expected. Let's get into the review, shall we?
Let's do it.
So, first 10 minutes of that first quarter, Darcy kicked the first goal, and I'm like, we're on here. This is something different. This is a different vibe I'm getting from them. They came with intent. They hunted in numbers. They were hitting targets. They looked clean with the ball. And I'm thinking, we're on here. And then after quarter time, it's like they went back into their shell and they went back to the Carlton of the last 3 weeks. So what did you take from that first quarter?
Well, I mean, it was really nice, wasn't it? The first 7 minutes, like you say, there was short movement, handballs, runners everywhere. Every time we had the ball, there was 6 or 7 options. It felt like it was it felt like Carlton had found something. It was almost like the shackles were off and they were playing with freedom and they were going to give it a go. And Fremantle looked shell-shocked at times. They looked like they were going to be really stretched and had to dig in. But then Fremantle stabilised and Carlton imploded, didn't they? And it was very easy from then on in from Fremantle. Fremantle didn't really struggle after that. It was training session stuff for Fremantle after the first quarter.
It really was. And it wasn't just... There weren't huge mistakes that we were making. It was just fundamental errors that we were making. Like their first goal in the first quarter, I was a little bit disappointed with because it was pretty much 3-on-1 in that defensive 50 to our favour, and we still managed to stuff it up and they run into an open goal and kick a goal. And that, to me, that comes down to lack of communication between the defenders at the time, which we'll touch on a few bits and pieces to unpack from the open training session, which you knew a few people that went. So we'll get into that. But it's just the skill error and the lack of awareness of where you are on the field is a huge issue. And I'm starting to think that either there's mixed messages coming from different lines, different coaches, and there's not one clear, concise message coming from the top. Is that the vibe you're getting?
I mean, some of the mistakes were. I've got to say, I was impressed this week because the two worst things I've seen on a football field happened this week. Gab Pound's handball to Michaela on out of nowhere, really, where she managed to hit the only key forward that Fremantle had in that area. Didn't let the ball go out of play, handballed straight to her so she could kick into the open goal. And then in the fourth quarter, where she managed to find, with seconds left, Hayley right in front of the goals. And I've never seen two mistakes like that in a football field. It's alarming. I mean, I think that says to me that's panic. That's real panic at its highest level. It's almost like some of these girls don't want the ball anymore. It's too much risk. It's almost like I need to get rid of this thing as quickly as possible. It's like a ticking time bomb for them. And you can see the confidence withering away. Like you saw it in the first, in 10 minutes, I think it was Egan who got caught 10 minutes into the first. And that was kind of the first moment that you saw Cowton start to lose faith. It was almost like, oh no, we played her into trouble. She turned the ball over. Oh no, we're not very good, are we? And it escalates, and suddenly then you have them moments where we kick to Hayley in front of goal with 20 seconds left. It escalates, and it's a weird thing. It's like one mistake leads to 2, leads to 20 points, leads to 40 points. And the team that finished the game weren't the same team that started the game. It was almost like the two different teams. It was like Space Jam when the aliens steal the skills. It was like the aliens had come after the first quarter.
I honestly just can't put my finger on what exactly is going wrong. And it highlights our forward line here. I mean, 1 goal for the entire game. That's the second week in a row we've only kicked 1 goal. Like, what's going on? Like, you get the football, you move it down the ground, you kick it into your 50, you score a goal. That's not happening. And you get the ball out of the middle, you kick it into the forward line, you're kicking it to the shortest player on the field. Our tall ruckman or our tall forward is not existent. They're there, but they're non-existent. And it's just the ball keeps getting rebounded and rebounded and rebounded. And it's just like there's no structure to our forward line. It's Hail Mary, bomb it long. When, like you said, in the panic moment, that's all they do. In that panicked moment, they just think, shit, I've got to get rid of the ball here, and they bomb it long. And after the first quarter, that was their go-to.
I mean, it's weird as well, because at quarter time, Cade Simpson talked about the wind and said that we're going to play into the wind this quarter. And he was saying it's going back to basics, keeping the ball short and sharp, retaining possession of the footy and playing the territory game. And it was weird because I went back and watched that second quarter. There was not one short kick in the entire quarter after Cade has said that's the game plan, which I thought was really alarming because Cade Simpson's come out of the huddle there to say this is basically the mantra, and the opposite happened. Like, you literally saw the opposite of what Cade says. And it was weird because Carlton kind of did what Cade wanted in the first quarter when we had the wind. And the girls did really well, to be fair. They really did apply themselves well. But then the second quarter, I'd love to know what happened. Did Cade say that? Was that Harford's messaging, or was that Cade assuming that's what they were going to do? Is that being lost by the way Harford's talking about it? Because I did notice, if you go back and watch the third quarter huddle, Cade Simpson is chatting to the girls individually as Harford's talking. And some of the girls are looking at him as if to say, what the fuck does he mean? And it's almost like Cade's bite-sized piecing it. So is Harford being overcomplicated? Are the girls not listening? It's hard to analyse, but yeah, it was a weird game.
It's that breakdown of communication, isn't it? And it's something that is, well, fundamental in football at any level, really, communication. And if there's a lack of cohesion between the playing group and the coaching staff, that's instant alarm bells. Like, if you're not understanding what you're being told and you're not asking the question, well, then you're just running around like a headless chook on a football field, really. And yeah, it looks, you know, they've just got no interest, and the endeavor after quarter time disappeared. Like it's like the team that came out in the first quarter is the polar opposite of the team that came out after quarter time, and it's disappointing because I prefer that team that started the game. Like, if we played like that for 4 quarters, we'd be a competitor this year. And it's just not happening because we've said it before. We've got the talent, we've got the list. It's just they're either being miscoached or not played in the right position, or there's a breakdown of communication somewhere.
There's a lot of questions in that. I thought two massive takeouts for me, though, were one, that is Dan Harford's best 21, with the exception of Courtney Jones. So I know people are talking about Maddie Gearing and things, but he simply doesn't pick her. So he obviously doesn't rate her. I would say that 21 out there, with the exception of Courtney Jones, who was health and safety protocols, that's his preferred 21. So we can safely say that's as good as it gets in personnel in Harford's mind. That's who he wants to see, and obviously who he trusts. And the second one was the difference between Cade Simpson's first quarter team talk to the press. He sounded like a leader. He was to the point. It was short. It was sharp. This is what they need to do. This is how they do it. This is what I'm expecting. And then Harford came on at third quarter time, and he sounded like the dad of the useless kid talking to you about their kid in Auskick. Like, that's how he talked about. It was like all fictitious stuff, you know, like all romance and things like that. And then at the end of the game, he went on to say that we're rebuilding, where we need to take a step back to go forward. And then 5 weeks ago, he was saying that we're a finals side. You can see the real confusion in Dan Harford. Like, Harford hasn't got a clue. So what hope have the girls got? He doesn't know what direction, because in 5 weeks, we've gone from a final side to effectively we need to rebuild, which is a big loss of confidence in your players in 5 weeks.
I'm 100% behind that. And the AFL dropped a video today of all the coaches about the non-negotiables. And I'm not sure if you saw it. Daniel Harford did his little bit. And it was along the lines of, if you don't put in, I won't pick you. That's a little bit of a cop-out. I mean, well, Maddie Gearin, I don't know what she's done to be on his bad side, but she is probably one of the best running carriers we've got in that side, on that list, and he's not playing her. Why? Like, what, you know what I mean? I'm a bit bewildered by some of the decisions that he's been making, and then some of the comments he makes throughout the week or at other games, and everyone's of the same opinion as what's going on in his head.
I think the biggest worry for me is you could get a David Teague moment from Dan Harford. And what I mean by that is, if we go back to the Bolton era, we had the Harry Mackay Bolton incident, where Harry famously, as reported, stood up and basically questioned the forward line tactics and said that if you kick it to me, you win games. And Bolton didn't like that, and Bolton sent him to the reserves. There was that big falling out, and lo and behold, Harry was right, because he was pretty good when he came back. I get the impression that's Dan Harford. I see these girls looking like 2018 Carlton men's, 2019 Carlton men's at the start of the year, where they look scared to speak out. They look scared to have an opinion and say, look, I don't understand. I don't think we should do this. And what happened from Bolton, if you remember, Teague, and the players loved Teague because he listened to them, and they could have ideas and Teague would take it on, so much so that we wouldn't have a game plan because evidently the players didn't want to work. That's my fear, that after Harford, if we get too lost in this and that the girls are repressed almost, we may get a complete muppet as a coach. And it's a grey area, because I'm getting real Bolton vibes from Harford, that I'm nice in the press, but maybe I'm not really a people person behind closed doors and I don't listen to my team and I do have favourites and there is certain criteria for you to play. Because Maddie Gearing at a wedding, while the girls are losing by 45 points, her Instagram, as the siren went, she was at a wedding, which was unbelievable to me. That says a lot because she is in our best 21 on talent.
Oh, 100% she is. And I don't follow her on socials, but that there is telling. Like if you're not watching the girls or supporting the girls in any way, obviously they couldn't take them all to Perth because of WA's border situation, and they had to do a fly in, fly out scenario, and they had only allowed a certain amount of people in. But still, like, I don't quite understand what. Yeah, it's just one of those dynamics that you'll just never quite understand. And if the girls are afraid to speak up, don't be. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You won't play for that week. But you've voiced your opinion, and instead of hiding it in and keeping it in, you'll feel better for putting it out there. And like this comment here, I agree. Like if you watch the Bulldogs, you know what I mean? Like they were down and out. They were down and out, and they weren't that we were thinking, is this the end of the competitive Bulldogs? And then they come out and they just find something. That's what we need to do. We need to find something. And I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss to quite work it out. And for those that have missed it, I would love your thoughts again on the talk that you mentioned it in the live stream just before the end. And for Riley, go ahead.
Well, she's guilty of my two worst moments, Riley, I've ever seen in the same game. The handball to Michaela was a personal highlight, but at the end, if someone goes and watches the live back, I actually timed it because she has a behind, Hayley does, and I'm like, that's kind of a shame. She does deserve a goal this game, and literally, as I said that, Gab Pound picked her out with a peach of a kick, and I lost it, and so I didn't mean kick it to her though.
No.
Yeah, Gab Pound, what can you say? That might be, before that, Cam Paulson, any game, was the worst I've ever seen a Carlton player do.
Look, to Gab's credit, she did fight all day. She did put her body on the line all day. She's one of the very few that I can sit here and say that every week gives 110%. Love Gab Pound. Probably not her best kick, but I do love her. Maddie Prasparkas is another one that just puts her body in, week out. I've seen comments about how well Grace Egan's thrown herself into the last couple of weeks after her broken ribs. And like then you look at the rest of the team and you go, well, where's Lucy McAvoy? You barely hear her name get called anymore. I didn't see Abby McKay had a bit of an off game. Georgia G had a bit of an off game. Darcy, they started well, but then they kind of fell away. So yeah, I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of weird things. Like in the first quarter, I thought our best player at times was Dalpos, who went on the ball, and I thought her natural ability to play short and bring players in and around her, which is what she was famed for at GWS, was what the midfield need. And then suddenly in the second quarter, she's back in no man's land. And that's the question I'd love half on this show. And I'd just ask him simply, what did you think happened in the second quarter? Because he's now talking about it's not football skills, it's mental. And he's saying it's not football application, it's mental application. Which that's a worry to me, because I think a coach is solely responsible for that. The the Gab Pound hitting Hayley, I can let fly. There's a coach killer. She had a brain fart. The handball to Michaela in the second quarter, she had a brain fart. It's not his fault. But the mental application, when it keeps happening, either drop players or make changes. And Dalpos is a great example. 4 touches in the first quarter. She had 1 after it. And She was linked in literally every inside 50 in the first quarter. Why move her off the ball? Like,
this is it. This is what I
did she do?
mean. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, when I saw her starting in the middle, I'm thinking, this is a change. This is nice. Like, she is a midfielder. She's built to run. She can run all day. Put her in a position that she's going to be actually able to have an impact. And she did in that first quarter. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, what? Where is she gone? Why is she not in the middle? Like, why would you change something that's working? Like, that whole structure at quarter time shouldn't have been touched, because key position players were winning the ball and getting the ball to where it needed to be. And then you move the likes of Del Pos back into the back line for whatever reason, and it just screwed the entire system. So that's not a player brain fart. That's a coaching brain fart.
Yeah, and I mean, the question I have with it is, why would you move Del Pos back when she had the wind against her? Like for me, you'd want more tall people down there. So maybe the argument would have been, you move McAvoy down the back if you want to take someone out of the midfield, give an extra body, an extra bit of height down there, because you know the ball's probably going to be punched in there a lot of times. It was a bizarre situation for me. And just watching that game, just hearing Harford speak, it was really underlined to me the difference between him and Cade. Cade talked about football, and Half started talking about fictitious stuff. Like, halfway through his press conference, I thought he was going to talk about sitting on a mountainside in Nepal, smoking marijuana and seeing a hole in a cave or something. Like, it was real spiritual stuff. It was like Joe Rogan and DMT at one stage. It's like we'd really gone wild and we'd gone so off topic. Like, and that's my question. Is Harford the man for the job? I think it's becoming perfectly clear now he's not.
No, and we've said it for a few weeks now. And I think at the start of the year, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt of this season to see what he could do with this list. And it's obvious after round 6, with 3-4 weeks to go, it's obvious now that he's not. And then you look to Asimo, and you hear the confidence in the way he speaks. Not a very like outgoing spoken person, doesn't like to talk to the media. We know this. This has always been Simo. But his football knowledge of where the game is today, as opposed to where the game was 2 or 3 years ago when Harford took over, AFLW and the way it has evolved and the way the skill set is now, it's gone past Daniel Harford as a coach. And it went past him very quickly towards the end of his playing career as well. Like, football is an ever-evolving game. And we know this from just watching the last 4 or 5 years in the men's competition. Like, the way Richmond started to move and carry the ball and that mini dynasty that they've had. It's one of those things that you just need to change with the times. And Harford's still stuck in those ways in his head. And all these other teams are surpassing us. I mean, look at Gold Coast, for instance. They're just winning games left, right, and centre now. It's because they've built the list and they've backed each other, and now they're flying. And that's something that we're not doing.
Well, I think Cade gave me that feeling. I'm not going to compare him to him, but he reminded me of Clarkson in that interview, where Clarkson doesn't want to have small talk. He doesn't want to entertain the media. He just says, this is what we're doing. This is the message. Hopefully they go out and do it. See you later. And I really enjoyed that from Cade, because it was a nice, just get in, get out type thing. And he gave me the coaching vibe. I'm a big fan.
Me too. Moving on to the next thing I wanted to bring up, and we were talking about this off air, and for those that don't know, there was an open training session, was it yesterday, for our women? The first one we've had in a long time. Very similar setup to the way the boys had their open training. You know, the club sends you an email saying, let's go. You told me there was a really, really good turnout, which is good, like 100 people was a good turnout for a women's training session. You said you had a few people that were there. Do you want to give us a bit of a update on how they viewed the girls' training? Because I think it's important for the fans to see what they do off field as well as on field, and just how they went during the session.
Yeah, so we had a massive essay written. So I'll give some excerpts from that. There were an hour. There was an hour delay at the start of training. They did have an unscheduled psychology assessment training session. So it did overrun. It was an unscheduled session, though. The people turning out were informed. Even the players didn't know. But that was interesting. That is how it started. So take that what you will. I don't know if Riley's mate Gab Pound's Torp has caused a few psychological issues. It's affected me mentally as well. Prasparkis and Egan didn't participate until the very end, and when they did, it was very light drills, but they were away being massaged and whatnot, which we suspect it's from the injuries. But I thought this was a very interesting one. Pete Hayward will love this because he loves me bagging Dan Arthur. But Dan Arthur didn't attend training for 40 minutes. He wasn't there. No one knows where he was. And when he did attend, he didn't do anything. He literally left it to his assistants and observed, which I thought was really interesting, given his statement in the week that we need to be together, we need to be hands-on, we need to take a step back and really fast-track the next stage of learning. I thought that was a very interesting thing in an open training session. I understand he's got to observe the players, but take that what you will. Mimi Hill was brilliant. Dalpos and O'Day came into the reckoning because of their vocalness, but the feedback was everyone was quiet. It was a morgue is how it was described to me. The girls not talking. They talked to the fans and stuff, but in their drills, there wasn't much noise. It was almost like being at school. And Mimi Hill was the standout. And my mate did enjoy the fact that evidently the girls went at 20% in kick to kick. The kicking issues were really abundant in the training session.
Wow, lots to unpack there. Good to see that, the girls were interacting with the fans, and that's what you like to see. We're there to support the girls, and we turn up every week to watch them, and it's good that they're interacting. And that's probably one thing that has always been really good about the girls is that they're always there to interact with the fans. Like in years gone by, before pre-COVID times, the girls would come over to the cheer squad after the game, and they would give us a hug, give us a high five. We do the Hosco huddle as it was back then, where the Hosking twins would jump on the fence and we'd take a photo. They were always known to be like interactive, and that was always what set them apart from the boys. And I always thought that was a really nice thing. So it's good to see that those things are still happening, which is good. The concern is definitely the skills, which is obvious then kind of makes you realize that, well, if it's not happening at training and they're not hitting targets at training, then it's obviously going to, portray through your game. And that's what training's for, essentially, to hone those skills. Do you think we need to strip it right back then and just go back to the basics of teaching them how to kick properly? Is that the vibe that you got out of this feedback that you got from your friends that were there?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, the big thing that concerns me is it was like a morgue, which isn't a good. He said it was like two different entities. When the players did go around and do the running and were engaging with the fans, there was big smiles. It looked like they were peppy. But then when they went out on the track, it was like, we're naughty. It was like, we don't want to be here. And it got me thinking, a good friend of mine follows Eddie Howe everywhere. He's just taken over Newcastle United, and they're on a massive run at the moment. They were one of the worst sides in England. They're doing really well. And I had the privilege of having a few beers and a chat on Discord the other weekend with him. And he was saying that the first thing Eddie Howe did when he came in was the dressing room was miserable. They were depressed. They hated losing. The confidence had gone. They started to question themselves. There was infighting. And he wrote 3 things on the ball, on the board, and it was basics. It was defenders, clear your lines, get the ball out of here. Midfielders, retain possession. Forwards, you miss 100% of shots you don't take. Start shooting. And he stripped it back to basics and tried to get them to enjoy football again. I think that's what we need to do now. I think, obviously, when you start losing, everyone's played sport in chat. When you lose, it's not a nice feeling. When you lose a few games in a row, it's horrible, isn't it? Your mate who chews chewing gum too loud is annoying all of a sudden. Do you know what I mean? Everyone annoys you when you're losing, but when you're winning, everyone's your mate.
Yeah.
I do think they need to strip it right back, because if that's the impression the girls are giving out on the field in practice, we're seeing it game day. We are seeing a team that's not enjoying it.
Yeah, and losing isn't fun. Like I was chatting with my new coach today, and that was the thing. When you're winning, you're up and about. You get around each other, and then when you're losing, you're kind of down in the dumps, going, I really just don't want to be here. And specifically with this kind of setup, the girls could be anywhere else. Really, it's not their full-time job. They could be anywhere else. And I think that winning culture, that winning feeling, they need to bring it back. And they need to either sit down in a room together without the coaches and just vent. Just have a venting session. Just let it all out. Wipe the slate clean and then hit the track together. You know what I mean? Support. They need to support each other. They need to be one unit. Not 2, 3 girls here, 2, 3 girls there, 4 or 5 girls there, one solid unit. And I think that's what they need to do. I agree with you. Strip it right back, get in a room together without the coaches and just let it all out. Because I've spoken to a few of them after games, and the key message is saying to me is stick with us, stick with us. We know this hurts. We're not happy about it. Stick with us is the biggest thing they keep saying. And I saw Darcy, they posted something not long ago. I think it was after the North Melbourne game or the Adelaide game. They're like, stick with us. We know this is difficult, and we're continuing to discuss them every week. We're continuing to turn up to games because we want to back them in. We're not there for the coaches. We're there for the girls, and the more we turn up, I think will hopefully spark something in them going, shit, these guys keep coming. We got to do something. And even if they just take the game into their own hands, they've all played football before. The way they're playing is like they've never played a game of football before. Like, guys, put in the effort, have the endeavor, back your teammate in, put in that shepherd, use your voice. God, girls have got voices for a reason. We're loud for a reason. And I find it's not just at that level where it's silence on the field. It happens at every level. But when you're watching the boys train, you can't shut them up. And they're quiet off the field. So it's, you know what I mean? So, it's a puzzling one.
There's definitely a sense that I think maybe they're overthinking it. I don't know if that's a coaching thing. Maybe Dan Harford is overthinking it, overcomplicating it, which is part of the lost in translation we saw this week from what Cade said was said to what happened. But I do think, I'd like to see them strip it right back, go back to basics. They've got very easy games coming up until the Melbourne game. They aren't too difficult. So now's the opportunity to make them changes, to just bring it right back to basic football and enjoy themselves a bit.
Yeah. And I'm with Beachy here. I missed the 2019 and 2020 Carlton AFLW. Like, you wanted to go and watch them play. Like, you dropped everything going, the girls are on this weekend, let's go. It's not everyone's first instinct anymore. And it's sad because we want the culture of AFLW to continue, and we want our fans to come across and watch both the men's and the women's. And yeah, it's just one of those things. And like you said, now we've got the opportunity to segue into this week's match. And you're right, we do have a couple of easier games. No game's easy anymore. As you can imagine, I mean, there's been a few upsets in the last couple of weeks, so there's no easy game anymore. But St Kilda are below us on the ladder, and they haven't won a game yet. But they're on the rebuild, having Nick Del Santo take over this year. So this is our opportunity to really focus on those key areas that we're lacking. So that skill and our decision making, I suppose, because there's a few decisions that we make on a weekly basis that are probably cringeworthy, which we've seen on multiple occasions. So I just think this week is one of those make or break games for a few of our girls.
100%. I mean, this is the week as well. You know that Prasparkis had that horrible knock, and for some reason she came in with 2 minutes to go. I'm not too sure why they replayed her, because I heard she left the venue in an ambulance. Don't know how true that was, but I know one of the media outlets reported she went with the paramedics after the game up to the hospital. So it's maybe a chance here where you do throw gearing in. You know, the goals you maybe are on the outer that you're not 100% sure of. St Kilda aren't crash hot. They're a baby side. They're hurting because there's no Patrikios. She's not playing. So they're a vulnerable side, and they're a side, though, that to their credit, they do keep coming. They don't let you beat them. They do keep coming. So great opportunity for our girls, really, to go out there and know they've got a better skill level and better experience and better physicality. And it's an easy game on paper. Let's put it that way. But in reality, it's not.
No, on paper it is definitely not an easy game. They've got the Giants. I think they've got a game. The way that they fixtured everything at the moment is a little bit different. I think they're doing some catch-up matches with the postponement of a few games. So I think, it's going to be an interesting one, because they play us on Saturday, and then they follow up pretty quickly with the Giants on Wednesday next week. So that game will be on. So they're gonna have to back it up pretty quickly. Both the Giants and the Saints, because we play the Giants that following Sunday. So I'm keen to see what the St Kilda side can bring, because we beat them in a practice match before the season started late last year. So it'll be interesting to see what they've learnt, because I've watched a couple of St Kilda games, and it seems like they are on the improve, which is good to see from a football standpoint. But Pete's right. It's going to be a fascinating game of endeavour versus skill. I think we need to bring both, because, like you said, St Kilda are going to keep coming. And, I'm definitely keen to see how we go. I'll be there. I don't know anymore.
Well, I mean, St Kilda haven't been beat, which by a long way since the Melbourne game. They've kept it really tight and really sharpened it up. I do think last week I did watch that with my beautiful wife. She's a big Saints girl. They lost by 2 to Brisbane, which did worry me, because we remember what Brisbane did to us. They had a bit of a day out.
Yeah, well, they lost by 5 to Brisbane. They lost by 2 to West Coast the week before. So their losses haven't been as big as ours. Like you said, our Brisbane game was probably, as far as it got. I'm just looking up their scores now. They haven't played in a while. Yeah, that Melbourne game was 41 points, and they haven't played from the 22nd of January. Their next game after that, because of the health and safety protocols, was the 8th of February against, it might have been, actually, no, it was before then. It was that Brisbane game. But yeah, so they've had lots of rest in that regard. We've been very lucky, touch wood, with our health and safety protocols. It hasn't wiped out the side. But no, they're going to be fresh. And that's scary, like you said, like getting close to West Coast, getting close to Brisbane.
Well, I mean, the Brisbane game, exactly like Peter says, it was just endeavour. One thing I'll give St Kilda is they do the basics very well. They do the basics well. It's adding that gloss they probably haven't got quite yet. You can see it's a new side in the term of cohesion. They definitely lack the class of Patrikios, who we know she's brilliant. She's one of the best players in the league if she was allowed to play. So that's a huge out for them. But that is the one thing, like Pete's right, I do sound nervous because
I'm nervous.
I know they're going to make our girls earn it. It's going to be like Shan said before the start of this show, it's going to be Geelong vibes. It is Geelong vibes. We're going to have to kill them. They ain't going to just fold. They are going to keep coming. They dust themselves off. They attend that centre bounce and they give it everything they've got until the final siren. And really, I wish we had that heart. If we had that heart with our skill level, we wouldn't be in this predicament.
No, that's right. And they will like their chances based on performances in the last couple of weeks that they've had, as we mentioned. So they're going to have their tails up, essentially. And it's a scary prospect for our girls because, we just need to come in all guns blazing. And if we play the brand of footy that we played in that first quarter, I can't see us losing. But in saying that, what's going to happen? Like, how are they planning to structure up? What changes are we going to make? Like, do we bring in a Maddie Guerin? Who do we drop if we do bring in Maddie Guerin? You know what I mean? Kate Sheila is probably one of their better forwards at the moment, whether they play her in the ruck against Moody, or do we keep Jess Good and move her into defence? It's one of those things that structurally and matchup wise, we have to be really careful with, because St Kilda have a couple of young girls that are probably a little bit quicker than some of our girls. And we've seen the fitness level of our girls and how it falls away towards the end of the game. And the jogging has to stop because they're going to run all day.
Well, I mean, they play for each other. One thing that Nick's done with that side is they've got a lot of heart. You see they play together. They run hard together as well, which, I mean, somewhere between us and St Kilda is the flag side, really. If we could have their togetherness and their energy, our skill level, we'd probably be okay. So it's going to be interesting because St Kilda are a side that I would be worried if they get a couple of goals. If they get a goal or so in front and that confidence starts to build, we're going to have to be playing very well to beat them. So hopefully the girls come out, like you say, first quarter against Fremantle, 2 quick goals, get your bodies around the ball, let them know they're in for a battle, and hopefully they'll start to go in their shells a bit.
Well, that's it. And the biggest one for me, the biggest matchup that I think we need to be very wary of, and I'm interested in your thoughts on who we should play on this player. She hasn't had the breakout year that she had last year for St Kilda, and that's Caitlin Greiser. Now, she hasn't played to the level that she did last year, because I remember watching her and she was just so electric, and she can kick the ball a country mile. I'm interested in your thoughts of which defender do you think will go to her, and do you think that, or do you think they'll put a tagging role like a Lucy McAvoy on her or something around those lines?
Well, I mean, what they have tried, and I'll give Harford some credit. We saw it this week, particularly with the Antonios and how deadly they are, because they drop so deep into midfield and then they can suddenly be inside the goal square kicking goals. I wouldn't mind you give Kez the run with role, because I actually liked when she was intercept marking in the midfield in the first quarter. I thought that helped us out a little bit. at first I was like, what the hell's Kez doing this high up the ground? But then I saw she's trying to stop that Antonio threat, which Antonio, particularly Ebony, she's kind of like Charlie Kerner. She can play full forward, but she can run into the midfield if she needs to drag you out there. So I'd maybe be inclined, because the ball is going there. That's their out ball. I don't think the other forwards, I think Charlotte and Lalofi could handle the other forwards on their own. They're not particularly tall, but I do think she's a threat.
No, well, in saying that, Kez did an exceptional job on Erin Phillips 2 weeks ago against Adelaide. She kept her, I think she only kicked 1 goal, and that was a gimme. So we know that she can play that role. So yeah, I'm interested to see. Pete believes that Charlotte will get her, which is quite the possibility, because we haven't really seen Charlotte take a lot of intercept marks this year like she has in previous, or last year really. And Mua Lalawifi has probably been one of our better defenders. Has her moments with her brain farts and stuff like that, but you'll know that she'll back into a pack. And like, she took a couple of knocks early in that first quarter against Freo, but she bounced straight back up and just kept moving. That's the kind of like moment where you get around her, or you get your girls around her. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one-on-one scenario, because I know, just looking at their list, it's like Catherine Phillips. She's been outstanding for them. Rhiannon Watt, always really good. Tani White. I love watching Tani White play. And then you've also got, your Bianca Jacobsons and your Tilly Lucas-Rod ex-Carlton girls and stuff like that. So even Renee Solitis, she's also been playing some really good football for them. So there's a lot of players on their list that we're going to have to be mindful of, because they've got really good run and carry, St Kilda. So I'm worried. I'm very worried. Hope our girls get across the line, but extremely worried.
Well, I mean, transition is the way to beat Carlton. And Lucas Rod, you've mentioned her there. She's electric when she gets the ball. She's always in everything they do. She's one of them players that goes unnoticed. She reminds me in the men's game of Daniel Rich. You don't often notice him, but then at the end of the game, you're like, bloody hell, he's had 28 touches. You know what I mean? Like, he's done well there. Lucas is that. I wonder if we give her, I wouldn't mind Dalpos going across half forward this week and saying run with her in the old Jaron Geary role that he did on Dock that year.
Don't mind that.
Try and stop them coming out, because I think watching Freo, it was so easy for them to go from halfback to midfield.
It was
and maybe Dalpos, she loves the tackle, she loves the rough stuff, big engine on her. Say, look, tell you what, you live with her, take away that run.
That Jed Lamb kind of role.
Yeah, give her an elbow in the face on the way past, like Jed Lamb.
Highlight of my life, Jed Lamb, watching him play football, especially when he really got into some faces. But moving into the last little bit of the show for the evening, and I love giving these every week. I will eventually get her on the show before the end of the year, and it is Michelle's tips.
Well, she's on the honeymoon at the moment, so we'll forgive her not being here.
To Michelle, hope you're enjoying your honeymoon together. We do miss you, and I will see you guys when you get back. But this week, she still sent me her tips, bless her. She's gone with the Dogs, Crows, Saints, Eagles, North and Brisbane. So she has no faith in our girls. Do not blame her in the slightest.
Jesus. When she pulled the Saints out, I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, look, I don't blame her. They haven't really given us much to tip in this instance, but happy to lose a tip if it means we get the W, because I really want to be sitting here next week discussing a win, because we desperately need one. Not just because, well, let's face it, we're not going to make finals, but more for the confidence boost for the girls. they need a little bit of a spark and a little bit of a happy game, I suppose. So if any week to do it, it's this one in front of the home crowd. I would love to see the girls get a win. What else can you really say to them? It's just go in with a little bit of gusto, please. Just do me that favor.
Well, I mean, the last 4 games are important, aren't they? You've got players coming out of contract as well. So, I mean, you get 3 out of 4 wins. You've got something to say to them in them contract negotiations.
Yeah.
Like, also, it puts you in the window for other players. Do you know what I mean? Like, depending on which way Monroe goes down. I mean, last year, I don't know what he did in the list management, but this year, you'd say he's got quite a big job when he comes to the training table. When he comes to the trading table, win 3 of these 4 games, you can sell the dream to another player, can't you? So
that's it.
It's window shopping time. This
It
last
is.
4 weeks.
It is, and we've got the Giants, the Suns, and the D's the last 3 games after this week. So I'd say the Giants and the Suns are very winnable. Not so much the Suns anymore because they're showing their class at the moment. But Giants is definitely a game that is winnable. It'll be at Monica next week, so we'll preview that next week. But yeah, the last game of the year, the Melbourne game,
just right.
It's going to be most likely at Casey Fields. But yeah, look, if we can finish the year on a high note, it'll make all the difference heading into 2023 when the new teams come in. Look, Peter, I want to see myself happy next week as well.
But Peter's quite happy seeing me miserable all the time because I do it so well.
Yeah, look, I'm usually a positive person when it comes to this football club, and Pom knows more than anybody when it comes to the boys how happy I usually am, even though we're losing. But yeah, I'm hopeful, and let's hope next week I am sitting here with a smile on my face, and then I am happy come Saturday evening.
I would love to do a watch along this week and be a win. To be honest, I can't remember the last watch along I did for a win. So someone did a stat the other day that is a 78% loss streak on a live. So yeah,
maybe give this week a miss and see if we win.
So that's great to know that I'm so used to losing. So no, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see a win. Yeah, you know, by half time I'll be up and about if we're winning.
Oh, you're up and about even when we're losing, Pom. I know.
I try. I've got the energy levels. I wish I could give the girls my energy levels.
I'd happily pull on the boots and give them my energy levels.
I wish I could transfer my energy from the lives to them.
Yeah, well, I'd love to transfer my energy live at the game, but you know, that's just one of those things. But let's just hope that the girls front up this week. Everything falls into place for them. They get the win, and we're all happy singing the song at the end of the day. That's all we want. We want nothing but good vibes for these girls.
That's all we want. That's all we want. 4 points and the song.
4 points in the song. That's it. Well, thank you very much once again, Pommy, for joining me. As always, it's always a pleasure having you on the show with me. We tend to ramble on for a little bit, but that's fine because it's always about the Blues. So have a good night, everybody. Thank you once again, Pom, and up the Baggers.
Go Blues.